Hello, everybody. Hello, welcome to ISO 27201 Roadmap. Welcome to ISO 27201 Roadmap webinar. This is Ahmed. Thank you for attending this webinar. In this webinar, we will discuss in around 30 minutes the roadmap to be ISO 27201 compliant. How to achieve the compliance with less effort, with the best experience, and how to be compliant without any issue in the implementation, in the audit, without any surprise. Fine. So at the end of the day, here we can say that being ISO 27201 compliant is a very important project for you as information security manager for your organization and so on. So here we will discuss all the roadmap, starting from the implementation and end with maintaining the compliance. So this is the full roadmap as you see here from the monitor, as you see from the screen. To be ISO 27201 compliant, you have to take these 8 steps. First, you have to develop the project business case. And as you see here, this project, what is the needs, or what are the needs to have this project in place? Why we need to be compliant? This is a very important. This is something extremely important for you. Then, after develop this in your business case, you have to mention all the critical success factor, all the failure, and the critical failure factor as well. All of this here will be listed in the business case. The benefits that you will gain from this project. Why we have to do this business case? To gain the upper management approval. To gain the upper management approval for this project. Then, after getting the approval, you have to lead from project management approach. You have to perform a gap analysis, and as we know, in the gap analysis, it's a comparison between point A and point B, fine, between the current state and the desired state. So, because maybe you are very near from your objective, or maybe you are very far from this objective. Here in the gap analysis, it will make it a crystal clear for us to see what we need to have to being compliant, what we need to have in our environment, what we need to have in our enterprise, considering the internal and external stakeholders, to being able to achieve this compliance. And remember here, ISO 27201 will not allow you to get the certificate and being ISO 27201 compliant until you being compliant with the applicable laws, with the applicable industrial standards that you are in. For example, you are a merchant and you are speaking and you are performing some information security transactions, like some information security transactions. For example, here you are purchasing, you are proceeding or transmitting or storing credit card information for a reason or another, and you want to be ISO 27201 compliant. This will not be achieved. No, you will not be ISO 27201 compliant. Why? Because you have to be PCI DSS compliant first before being ISO 27201. This one of the known clauses here. Number 10 here we have in the clause, number 18 here we have in the clauses, number A in the annex, we have number A18 that is listed in ISO 27202, the controls. You must maintain the compliance. For example, if you are addressed with the GDPR, you have to be GDPR compliant first before being ISO 27201. So ISO 27001, in another words here, it will help you to address all the compliance requirements, and it will be listed in your gap analysis. Then you will go to the risk assessment. Risk assessment, it's mentioned in two clauses in the ISO 27001. As you know, in the ISO 27001, we are depending on the iteration PDCA. PDCA. Plan, do, check, act. Plan, do, check, act. You have to plan. You have to put a good plan. So in clauses number 6, fine, you can find in this section here, we have two clauses here are addressing the risk management and the risk assessment, and assessment and under the risk management and the risk treatment procedures. You have to mention this in the planning. Then in the clauses 8, you can find here that you must show me risk assessment. You perform the risk assessment. You are addressing and you are using something we call it here risk management approach in implementing the controls. Usually we ask very important question. If you have two products, which one you have to implement first, assuming that I have project at name X and I have a project at name Y. I have next generation firewall, I have two-factor authentication. Which one you have implement first? Usually I like this example. Which one? The first generation firewall or the two-factor authentication? If you said next generation firewall, the answer is wrong. If you said two-factor authentication, the answer is also wrong, because the answer here, the optimum answer, this is depend on the risk that it is managed. For example, in company, I will call it A, the firewall, it will manage very high risk. So this must be the first one to be implemented. In another company, the most important now, it is two-factor authentication to be compliant with the PCI DSS 3.2 that is required from Jan 2018 to have two-factor authentication for any non-console connection. So at the end of the day, this is the most important now. You must think before act. How to think before act? This is using something we call it here risk assessment. Then you have to implement the MESD controls. Implement the MESD controls. Maybe you need some implementation, maybe you need some documents, maybe you need some training, and so on. Then let's perform something we call it here pre-audit review. Pre-audit review. In this pre-audit review, you have to make a simulation for the audit, because you will have an official audit visit. So an official auditor from one of the certification bodies that is known around the world will visit you to audit your controls. So before this, we recommend to make pre-audit review. Then you have to perform the official audit visit and make a call for official auditor. This official auditor here will provide you with real audit, with official audit to review all the controls. And then if there is any non-conformity here, can happen when you see, for example, when you have some minor um, deviation here, or uh, you have some comments on the implementation of your controls, you are not implementing your controls well. For example, here uh, you are performing risk assessment, but you didn't document a specific risk, or you are documenting here all the risk treatments, but there is a specific treatment you didn't document and you selected to do. For example, avoiding the risk. You didn't document, but you performed it already. So this is minor, something minor. If it was major, it will be also written. Fine. And this will be here very clear in the next step in the official audit follow-up. The follow-up, as you see, the follow-up, if needed, maybe the official auditor will audit you, will visit you again to perform official audit follow-up here to follow up the implementation that you have inside your organization and so on. Then you have to maintain your compliance. The certification is valid for 1 year. and you have after this 1 year another 2 years for surveillance audit, surveillance for the second year, surveillance for the third year. Then in the fourth year you have to get a certification on it. So you have to maintain the compliance. Maintaining the compliance, it is not something very easy. So you let's go before the audit arrive with 1 month. Let's review what we have to do. Let's review our documents. Let's prepare our documents, and that's all. No, this is totally wrong, because you must maintain the compliance day by day, which is mean that you must have somebody inside your organization to make this maintenance. This is a very important point. What are the critical success factors for this? First, upper management support. Without upper management support, you will not be able to gain the you will not be able to gain the needed resources and the needed authority to implement and to enforce the compliance. It will be very difficult for you. It will be very difficult. Yes, so you are working just in one direction. You are just working here in just a way that you are working alone without a support. This is extremely impossible here to be to achieve this project without real, real support from the upper management. Support here, which is mean two things: the authority and the budget. The authority to enforce the controls, the budget to purchase, the budget to purchase controls, the budget um, to implement the controls, the budget to perform some training, the budget to hire some resources, the budget to outsource some resources like internal audit. This is very famous, to outsource the internal audit or the ISO 27001 or the compliance maintenance for some experts. Also, you need the experience. Also, you need the experience. How you can gain this experience? You can gain this experience by attending a class for ISO 27001 lead implementation, or another way that you can gain this experience by consult some experts. The experts or the consultants here will help you to implement and to close the gaps super fast in a very fast way, and with, of course, with a very low cost, because when you hire somebody, fine, to perform this, is a hidden cost on you. But when you go from to implement this without with a vendor, fine, so the vendor will give you something with real deliverables with specific dates, so it can be very efficient. Dedicated resources, yes, you need to have some dedicated resources to perform risk assessment, some dedicated resources to perform internal audit. This is very important issue. Some dedicated resources to manage the project. It's a project at the end of the day. Fine. And also, you need some dedicated resources to implement the controls itself. Then, also maybe you need the expert support that support the goal achievement. To achieve the goal to being compliant and maintaining this compliance, maybe you need the support of the experts. The experts, somebody from inside, from your organization or from outside the organization, that has the real experience to implement the controls and so on, and lead the project in a very efficient way to success. Then also you must maintain the compliance. Again, it is not a certificate you will gain just one time, and after that you can say that's all. I achieved the compliance and that's all. Nothing is needed. Nothing needed here. Fine. Until next year. So next year I will visit again my documents. I will try to see to satisfy the auditor, and this is will never happen, because the auditor here will audit your implementation across a year. I need to see real implementation. I need to see internal audit functions that are monitoring the 114 controls. And I need to see some non-conformity reports. Yeah, real non-conformity, which is mean it is mistakes. It is many issues. It is many issues that you found here, fine, during the implementation. This is like the maintenance. When you have a car, you need to make a maintenance. When you have a machine, you need to make a maintenance. When you have management system, because ISO 27001, this is ISMS, Information Security Management System. You need to make some maintenance. So maybe some deviation will happen, some issues will happen, and then you need to make here, fine, some maintenance and so on. So this is the implementation here, right? So this is the critical success factor. Let's go to the next steps. Yes, maybe the ISO 27201. Of course, you need to set a mission, the goal, a strategy, and a vision to achieve this. Fine. So all of this here must be mentioned and must be clear. What are the needed resources for this project? First, the team of the implementers. You need the lead implementer, senior lead implementer, team leader, and implementers. All of these persons here, find this, they can help you to achieve the compliance with the best results with the shortest time. If you have lack of resources, you have two ways. Hire some dedicated resources or outsource and depend on somebody, depend on a vendor to provide you with this consultancy service. Somebody to implement for you the ISO 27201. Somebody that have the experience, somebody that has experience, the enough experience to implement this fine in a very efficient way. Then you have to hire also internal auditor. If you have internal audit department, fine, maybe you can perform this with them. You can assign these tasks for them. The internal audit for as per the requirements, as per the clauses of the ISO 27201, fine, that you have to have internal audit. Or the second approach here is also to outsource the internal audit. Maybe it be one person, maybe it be one company, one vendor that implement and provide you with the internal audit and somebody to maintain the compliance. Then you need to have an official auditor, find official auditor from one of the known certification bodies around the world to certify you and to provide you with certifications. Yes, ISO 27201 open for you new opportunities. What's the meaning of that? When you gain ISO 27201, your customers will trust your information security. Your customers will trust more the information security. Why? Because at the end of the day, in the customers here will trust you more because you are already compliant with the applicable compliance. As you know, in the ISO 27201, as I mentioned in the since a minute ago, right, that it will be impossible for you to being ISO 27201 compliant without being applicable, without being compliant with the local regulation. For example, here in Europe, we have the GDPR, so you must be compliant with the GDPR. In Egypt, there is Egyptian Data Protection Regulation. You must be compliant with this one. In Gulf, in Arabic Gulf, in Mexico, in Argentina, and wherever, all the countries nowadays have local regulation related to the data protection and the compliance. So this will open for you new opportunities, will open for you new market. So this is can be addressed and this is can be mentioned. You have to do it. This can be mentioned in your implementation, in your um, business case that you developed, the presentation that you developed, fine, to gain the project approval here. So what we need to implement here? Actually, ISO 27201 contain introduction, the scope, fine, normative references here, terms and conditions, fine, this is from 0 to 3. All of this, it's considered here, it's speaking about the introduction, the scope, and so on. Nothing required till now. Starting from 4, this is the first clause here. This is the first clause here, fine, that will ask you to set the scope of the ISMS. So I need a document. It names the scope of the ISMS. You need here to mention the organization objectives and what is the scope of the information security. Number 2, then in the leadership here, this is something we call it here the upper management commitment. Show me the upper management commitment from approving the policies, from performing the reviews, from assigning rules and responsibilities for the information security. Number 6 is the planning. In the planning here, you have to mention for me the information risk management process that you have, formation risk assessment process, fine, and then also the treatments. Show me the objectives of your risk objectives, your information security risk objectives. The support here, it is the resources. You must mention the resources. You must perform some awareness, the documents, fine, and the management for all of this here in one place. So all of this are a support, assignment, rules and responsibilities, and so on. Number 8, the operation. The operation here, it's pure performing for risk assessment. You have to perform risk assessment by your hands. So can be found here in the operation. Then in the performance evaluation, this is, if you see here, this is in the number 6 here, this is plan. Number 8, do the operation. Number 9, check. Perform some check. Performance evaluation. Performance evaluation, this is to monitor, to measure, to make some analysis, to evaluate. This is all of this from the internal audit, by the way. To evaluate the efficiency of the ISMS. Then let's go to act. Plan, do, check, act. Act here, the improvement. Improvement here, I will see the non-conformities here and the corrective actions, and I will follow up these corrective actions and so on. Also, I have here the annex. The annex of ISO 27201, it can be very clear here. This is the annex. Annex is the controls. We have 114 controls in ISO 27201. 114 controls categorized in 14 groups, fine, in 35 control objectives. You can start with A5, information security policies, A6, organization and security and information security, 7 controls here, A7, human resource security, fine. This is before, during, after implement, different controls, fine. Assets management, access controls, cryptography, physical security, operation, communication, system acquisition. Again, we will not discuss all of these controls, but it's something let you enjoy the reading of these controls and how if you implement these controls, really, you will manage the information security in a better way. Supplier relationships here, system acquisition, this development, pure software development here. Information security, incident management, information security, aspects of business continuity, and so on. Number 18 here is the compliance. Compliance here and the internal requirements, fine, like policies and so on. Here, very important question here. Do you know why it starts with A5? Why the annex start with A5? Where is A1, A2, A3, A4 before having this 5? To answer this one, you need to understand the relationship between ISO 27201 and ISO 27202. Again, the certification will be gained against ISO 27201 because ISO 27201, this is Information Security Management System, ISMS. And when we certify a management system. But ISO 27202, it is just controls. To be honest, ISO 27202 controls, it is here in the annex. It is here in the annex that start from A5 to A18. It is the same. The same controls here. This is the relationship. ISO 27201, 202 here, it is a part of ISO 27201. Yeah, Can you see the part that highlighted with red? Fine. All of this annex here, it exists here. It's considered as a clauses, as a controls in ISO 27202. Where is 1, 2, 3, 4? It is here. In ISO 27202, there's introduction, scope, normative reference, terms, definition, structure of the standard here. So this is, of course, it is not a controls. It is not a controls. Here you can find that the controls it's considered here. In ISO 27202, you can find more explanation about the ISO and so on. What we have to have in hand to being compliant. First, the ISMS scope. Second, the information security policy and another policies implemented in place, working and everybody aware with it. Information risk assessment process. Information risk treatment process. This for clause number 6.1.2 and 6.1.3. Information security objectives written and documented. The evidence of the competence of the people that working in information security. Other ISMS related documents here, fine, that will be listed in the documents in 7.5. Operational planning, control documents here. The results of information risk assessment. Show me that you implemented really information security, information risk assessment. Show me here some decisions you made against this information risk by performing some risk treatment. Also, the evidence of the monitoring and the measurement of information security is 9.1. 9.1. The ISMS internal audit program. Show me the internal audit program 9.2 in the check plan do check in the check number 9. I before give you the certificate and let you be in compliant, you must show me that you have internal audit program, the evidence of top management review of the ISMS, and the evidence of non-conformities, the evidence that you are making the maintenance for this ISMS here and the corrective actions are taking place. What are the certification bodies that can help me to get my certification here? Fine, it is here as you see, we have here PECP, fine, SGS, fine, and another here too. Another there is many certification bodies here, and all of them here providing you the ISO. Again, you will never gain the ISO 27201 here from the ISO organization. The ISO organization is never gave the certificate for anybody. Is not certifying anybody. The ISO organization, it is an organization just to set the standards. This is the only job of the ISO 27 of the ISO organization. How the experts can help you? If you need any support from experts, this will be here. Find some of the benefits. This faster implementation, less try and error. Fine. It's a professional service and real experience. All of this you will gain when you gain the support of the experts in generic and or the consultant or the vendors, fine, that can support you. Why? Because the experts here can move you from point A to point B with less effort, with the fastest results, and with the minimum cost. So this is what we have now in the presentation. I hope that you enjoyed the presentation. Now this is the time for Q&A. Fine. If you have any question, please write down the question in the chat box. Fine. Write down your questions here. Fine. And we will start to answer your questions here in the next 15 minutes. This was the ISO 27201 webinar. Fine. Again, we will share the link of the recording of this webinar, and also we will share this presentation or the brochure here. It's a brochure for or a guideline for the ISO 27201. If you have any questions, please write down in the chat, please. You can write on the chat box. You can write on the chat box. Yeah, you can use the chat. Fine. Any questions regarding the implementation? Or if you want to open the microphone and speak, if you want to unmute your microphone and ask a question, it also allowed. Yeah. I got a question here. Can you please elaborate on the process of risk management? Fine, okay. Thank you, Muhammad Kamal. Fine. Risk management here, this is a big process that help you to perform the assessment from um, that coordinate all the activities here, fine, that you have to have in hand, fine, and you have to understand. I will show you here a good graph can help you to see all the process here, fine. um, yeah, yeah. This is the risk management process. This one from Nest, it's similar from ISO 27721. All of them are very similar to each other. In risk management here, you have to set the scope. You have to set the scope. Then you have to perform risk assessment. Risk assessment is three things. Risk assessment here, three things here. Risk identification, you can identify the risk by its symptoms, by its source, by um, by the by its source, by the symptoms, by the cause, the root cause for this risk. So this is risk identification. Then risk analysis, and we have three types of risk analysis. We have three types of risk analysis. First, risk. First one, it is risk, um, qualitative risk analysis. Second, quantitative risk analysis. The third, it is semi-quantitative risk analysis. Qualitative risk analysis, when you go to say the risk is high, medium, low. Quantitative risk analysis, when you say, if I lost this resource now, fine, I will lose this amount of money. So this is quantitative in money. Semi-quantitative, it's a numbers. Some numbers, you make some movement from the qualitative one to semi-quantitative one. So this is the identification, analysis, and evaluation. Identification, we understand the identification. I think we finished the analysis and the evaluation here. The evaluation here, you have to evaluate the risk. Usually we call it, you evaluate the inherent risk. Inherent risk is the risk before implementing the controls. The risk before protecting implement something to secure the control here against to secure the control here, or to secure the risk here, or to reduce the risk. So this is inherent risk. If you see that the risk is very high, you have to do one of the following: avoid the risk, mitigate the risk, transfer the risk. In some cases, we accept the risk as it. For example, the control cost is very high, or the risk here, likelihood of risk, it's very far. Fine, it's very rare, fine, to be happen. So when you avoid the risk, what's the meaning of avoid the risk? Avoid the risk, which is mean don't do the activity. For example, avoid the risk of website hacking. Don't have a website. Avoid the risk of Facebook account hacked. Don't have an account on Facebook. Avoid the risk of make accidents by airplane. Don't take airplane. Don't fly. Fine, this is avoid the risk. Mitigate the risk, which is mean implement some controls to mitigate the risk here. Transfer the risk, which is mean I will transfer the risk to somebody else. Fine. So I will transfer the risk to somebody else by making outsourcing or making some insurance. This transfers the risk, insurance or outsource. Or accept the risk as it. Remember, accepting is not ignoring the risk. Ignoring the risk is something different. Ignoring the risk here, fine, which is means that you will not perform this assessment. Fine, you will select to ignore the risk You will not document, you will not monitor, you will do nothing but nothing. Then that we will have something we call it residual risk. Residual risk, this is the risk after the risk treatment. After you implement some treatment for the risk, we have risk treatment here. We have residual risk. Residual risk, you have to accept the residual risk and it must be within the acceptable level. Then you have to document and communicate and re-perform this risk assessment again. This is the story of risk management. This is the story of risk management. Again, we have here, fine, we have here, fine, many processes, fine, that can give you more information like ISO 20, many standards like ISO 20, like 31201 or 31000, this risk management ISO. And next publication 800, 30, 36 and 30, 37 and 30, fine. This is also provide you with the ability to perform and to understand, find the risk management here. Another question here, what is the risk identification phases or process here? You have to identify the risk here, fine, or we can say this is how we can identify the risk. Usually in Izaka, they support or they suggest a model. I like this model too much. And it's top-down approach. This is your organization. These are your departments. In each department, you have some functions. In each function here, it has some assets. Fine. After making a list for all of this tree, fine, let's make some listing for the assets that you have in each department, and let's see what are the risks that surround this asset, that surround the CIA of this asset, confidentiality, integrity, availability of this asset. Then you will build here something we call it here risk inventory. Then you have to perform your risk. After you identify the risk, you can make the risk analysis. This is the way. This is the way. I hope I answered you, Muhammad Kamal. Right? Another questions? If you want to ask again, you can unmute your microphone and ask me the question. So it seems that all is good, all is clear. Fine, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for attending this webinar here. It was my pleasure that I spent this few minutes with you. Fine, and hope to see you in another webinars. Thank you everybody. Fine, and enjoy your day. Bye bye. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Bye bye.